Hello, and welcome to another look with Christian King. Today I'm here to do my UFC 227 recap show. This card was excellent. I hope y'all tuned in. It was a lot of fun, some great fights. As usual, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. But first, I just wanted to take a quick second to discuss a few big fights that have been made recently. Till versus Woodley has been made, or Woodley versus Till, I should say. I'm very excited about that fight. I probably would favor Till, actually, early on at least, but I'll have to think about it a little harder and break it down a little bit and make an actual pick, of course, for my preview show. Khabib versus Conor is, of course, official now. That's going to be a great fight. Early, I would probably be leaning towards Conor to catch him coming in, but if he doesn't catch him coming in, he's in big trouble. So that's going to be an interesting one. And then also we have, it seems a little iffy to me if it's actually finalized, we have Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz. I think that should be a very, very good fight. I'd probably be favoring Nate Diaz early on, at least in my mind right now, despite how great Poirier has looked as of late. I don't know. I actually might favor Poirier because it's a 3-round fight, but if it's a 5-round fight, I'd favor Diaz because I just think he would really be able to put the pressure on and use his range. Dustin Poirier does very well from the outside, but Nate is much longer and taller than him. Nate looked huge compared to him. At the face-off, which kind of made me think about the fact that it's been a while since Nate Diaz has actually had to make 155. I hope I'm sure he will. He's never missed weight before, I don't think, he has. He missed weight against RDA. But anyways, that'll be an interesting one. So if you hear any noise, I'm just drinking a little bit of iced coffee right now with some bulletproof coffee. What is it? Brain octane oil in it. It's pretty good stuff. So yeah, all right, let's start at the top. TJ Dillashaw knocked out Cody Garbrandt in the first round this time to retain his bantamweight title. I had picked TJ to win this fight versus Cody, but I picked him by third round knockout. So I got the right fighter and I got the right method, so that's pretty good. That's about as good as you can hope for. But I thought the third round, I thought that they were going to both be a little more patient, and I thought that, I thought that Cody was going to be a little bit more patient, a little more careful, and Dillashaw is always down to have a little bit more of a patient fight if he's not being rushed. So I thought they were gonna be a little slower, start off a little bit easier, and I also expected Garbrandt to make more adjustments than he did. The only adjustment that I saw from Cody Garbrandt was that he threw kicks in this fight, and I don't think that he doesn't seem like he's a very phenomenal kicker by any stretch. So I didn't really think that was that big a deal for TJ. So I thought that wasn't necessarily all the adjustments. I don't know exactly what. I just think TJ kind of has Cody's number to some extent, and I also really do think, as I talked about in my preview show, that I just don't think Cody Garbrandt has a good chin. I think that when he gets hit, he gets knocked out and he gets hurt, and I think that's just because he's been taking shots his whole life from his friends and sparring partners and everything, and then was boxing very early on in his life, so having real fights against people that actually want to hurt him, and then even sparring in the gym. A lot of times, whether you like someone or not, you do spar really hard. I just think maybe or maybe he never had a good chin, but either way, I don't think that he has the same type of chin that Dillashaw has. So I kind of feel like when they get in a firefight, you got to favor TJ to be the one left standing. This was a phenomenal performance by TJ. He really only got hit hard one time, and he was a little bit, his feet had kind of come close together because he was in the middle of a movement, and so he kind of was more off balance than anything, but even then he didn't get knocked down from that punch. He looked great. He was using his usual angles, really playing his game, and then the best thing that he did, he knows Cody so well. He can see Cody makes that slight little pivot and takes like a half step back and plant with his right foot and plants it when he's going to throw power. And TJ really used that against him for the second fight in a row. But I think, and TJ talked about this after the fight, it seemed to me like TJ was completely willing to get in the exchanges because he trusted himself to be the one who kept his defense tighter. And he even said it afterwards. He said, I kind of used his own game against him. Cody likes to throw the straight right, and he likes to throw the right hand, and he likes to throw the left hook. He throws twos and threes. That's his main punch that he throws. He throws twos and threes. That's his combinations are all centered around right hand, left hook. And TJ was able to use that against him, knowing that when Cody's trying to load up on his right hand, he has a tendency to not keep his left hand high enough up to defend himself properly, and TJ was able to create these exchanges where he knew exactly what Cody Garbrandt was going to do, and Cody Garbrandt did not know exactly what TJ Dillashaw was going to do. And TJ used this to his advantage, and he was able to hurt Cody several times in the fight, and then towards the end, at that point, he had just hurt him so bad that Cody wasn't really there, and he landed that brutal knee to the face, another punch or two, and that was a good stoppage in my opinion. I mean, if anyone thinks that's an early stoppage, they're crazy. Cody was not coming back from that. He had stopped even really throwing punches back at that point. So I thought that was an excellent stoppage. I think it was Herb Dean, I think was the ref. So yeah, excellent stoppage by Herb Dean. I was really excited about this fight beforehand, and it really lived up to it, to my hopes and expectations. I do wish that we had gotten more than 4 minutes or whatever it was, or 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I do wish we had gotten a little bit more than that, just because I love watching TJ Dillashaw fight. He's my favorite fighter to watch, as I talked about on my preview show. So this is a really bad place for Cody. Cody's now lost 2 fights, both via knockout to the sitting champion. So he will not be getting a third fight with TJ Dillashaw probably ever, unless it's TJ coming to challenge him if Cody were to get the belt off of someone else who got the belt off of TJ. I think that TJ Dillashaw should fight Marlon Moraes and Marlon Moraes. I think that however you say his last name, I think he should fight Marlon, and I think that Dominic Cruz should fight Cody Garbrandt. And that sounds kind of weird because the last time Cruz fought was when he lost to Cody Garbrandt. But I think that Dominic Cruz needs to fight to get back to the title. Okay, I don't think he can just walk in just because he beat TJ in a highly questionable split decision. I scored that fight for TJ Dillashaw, and so did a lot of other people that know about the sport. I saw lots of people who thought that TJ won that fight. It was definitely a very close decision. So yes, Dominic, I guess, would have a little bit of say to come back and fight TJ right away, but I think that he needs to fight. His last fight was when he got whooped by Cody. So the reason why I think that Dominic should fight Cody is because Dominic at this point in his career is not interested in fighting a fight that's not going to generate any fan interest, and a fight against Rafael Sunsao, as much as Sunsao would deserve a title shot or a shot at someone like Cruz, that's not going to do anything for Cruz, because if Cruz beats him, it's just a win, and if he loses, that's pretty devastating. Whereas I think a rematch between him and Cody, because now it's a different fight. Dominic's had some time. He's one of the most intelligent fighters in the game, has one of the highest fight IQs in the game. So he's had time to adjust. He had 5 rounds against Cody, and he has all that tape and all of those memories to go back and see what went wrong. And now Cody is coming off of 2 knockouts in a row, so it might not be a bad idea for him to fight someone like Cruz, who's not known as a knockout artist, because you do not want Cody getting knocked out a 3rd fight in a row, because that could really spell the end of his career. You get knocked out 3 times in a row, it's hard to come back from that. That's all fans are going to remember. So I think that Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt 2 is the fight to make 1,000%. I haven't heard anyone else say that yet, and I'm very surprised, because that's the fight to make in my opinion. I would love to see that fight again. It gives Cody a chance to take a fight that he's going to feel confident in and make a comeback against someone who's not known as being a big puncher or a big finisher. And then Dominic Cruz, in the meantime, gets to use all of his fight IQ and wisdom and experience and watching the Dillashaw fights to come back and make the adjustments and see if he can beat Cody. Because if he can't beat Cody in a rematch, then why does he deserve to be fighting for a title in the first place? So I think that's an excellent fight to make. This fight was super fun. I was so happy to see Dillashaw win. I was surprised by Cody just falling into the exact same pattern. It was really kind of deja vu, but I don't think that he's the type of fighter, unfortunately, and I'm not sure if that camp is the type of camp that is going to make as good of adjustments as a camp run by someone more like a Mark Henry or a Varas Sahabi. I think that their camp is a little bit more of a grinding camp, and they just train really hard, which is great, but I just don't know if they have quite the wisdom in making adjustments that some of the very greatest coaches in the world. So I'm not saying that Team Alpha Male is not up to snuff with high-level gyms. I'm just saying that I feel like there's those few people at the top of the mountain coaching-wise that can make way better adjustments to game plans than any of the other camps. So it's nothing against Team Alpha Male. I just think that if Cody had, maybe been with someone who would have helped him make a little bit more adjustments, he might have done better. But at the end of the day, I think his chin is suspect. I said that. That was one of my main takeaways on my preview show is I do not think the verdict is out on Cody Garbrandt's chin. I do believe the verdict is out now, and I think that his chin is unfortunately not as elite as his other attributes. And a lot of times, no matter how good of a fighter you are, if you have a bad chin, that a great example is Alistair Overeem. He is a very elite heavyweight, but he does not have a heavyweight chin. And sometimes that can just be a problem. Garbrandt also, I noticed, last thing I'm going to say on this, TJ is definitely very muscle bound, but Cody has a little boy's body. He does not have a man butt. He does not have a butt. He does not have big legs. He's very, very skinny. I mean, he's really built like almost more like a middle school boy than a grown man. I think that he needs to decide, do I want to go down to 125 pounds, which I think might not be a bad idea, although I would like to see that Cruz fight, as I just mentioned. I feel like Cody Garbrandt needs to decide, am I going down to 125 or am I going to settle into being a true bantamweight? Because if you're going to have that thin of legs and butt and calves and just be that slender, you got to be longer and taller than that. Sean O'Malley comes to mind. Very long, tall striker, very lean, but, he has that range. I feel like Cody he doesn't have either. And I think that he's still young. He's still in his prime. With the right nutrition, the right science. I'm not talking about anything cheating. I'm talking about good, clean training, good, clean diet, good, clean supplements, good, clean science. He could definitely put on a little more muscle and grow into the weight class a little more, and I think that would do him some favors. All right. Well, let's move on to the big news of the night. Demetrius Johnson, of course, was dethroned. I picked him to win this round by 5th round submission. Pretty much everyone under the sun picked him. Vegas picked him, but Henry Cejudo didn't get the memo. Or the message, the good little pun there with his nickname being the Messenger. But Henry Cejudo, he came in here and he shocked the world. Now, the one thing I will say right off the bat, I do not think he won the fight. I think that Demetrius Johnson won the fight either 3 rounds to 2 or possibly even 4 rounds to 1. I felt like Cejudo would get outstruck and styled on the feet and then get a takedown and not do much with it. And a lot of the times when he did get takedowns, Demetrius was reversing them instantly, scrambling, using something called the Granby roll, where you just roll through the takedown to end up coming back to your feet. And I felt, I felt like DJ did enough to win that fight. Now, this was obviously a very, very, very high level fight. Beyond my knowledge for the most part. I'm not really. It's hard for me to break down a game like Demetrius Johnson's. He is just so incredibly elite, and there's so many subtle little tendencies and touches that he has. He's an amazing fighter, but I thought he won the fight. I really did. So what I'm going to talk about is the stuff that it makes sense for me to be talking about. In this first round, we saw Henry Cejudo have a Michael Chandler moment where his ankle started just folding on him. And I don't know if I'm pretty sure I do know. I'm pretty sure what happened is it was from those low leg kicks. Demetrius Johnson was landing kicks that were going right to just like his knee pit, the back of his knee. and right below that. And the back of his leg right there got very red immediately. It was pretty odd. It was like bright red. And then his ankle just started giving on him and rolling underneath him whenever he would move. And I thought the fight was over before it began. I was honestly pretty bummed out because, pay-per-views aren't cheap, and I was like, are we really about to see a TKO via injury in the first round, and that's all we're going to get out of that fight? I was going to be really bummed out because I wanted to see what improvements Cejudo had made. I wanted to see if Demetrius was showing any signs of slowing down with age, and somehow Cejudo was able to, power back through that and stay composed, stay calm, adjust the way he was moving his foot. You saw him turn his foot a little bit more to the outside, a little more like I think that'd be like duck-footed or whatever, where your feet are splaying out, and he kind of turned that foot there temporarily and adjusted it, and then I guess he started to get the feeling back, the nerve or whatever that had gotten hit. He started to recover from that, and he was able to come back and get the win. Although I don't think he got the win, it's still incredible that he just made it out of that first round. And with that, after that decision, I wonder if Demetrius Johnson is wishing he'd gone after that a little more. I mean, I feel like if he'd been a little more ruthless, he could have ended that fight in the first round while Cejudo's foot was compromised. I don't think you're going to get knocked out when someone's back foot can't have any weight put on it, because that's where you generate your power from, is from the ground. So if he can't, push that foot into the ground and pivot, then how is he going to throw a big knockout punch? So I would have really liked to have seen DJ pour it on a little more, especially after the judges made, in my opinion, the wrong decision. So afterwards, Henry Cejudo was very happy. He talked about how he felt overlooked and a little disrespected, and he'll go up to 135 since DJ never would, and that's all fine and good. That's awesome, but I absolutely think that Demetrius Johnson needs to get a immediate rematch. It would be criminal if Demetrius Johnson does not get an immediate rematch. That would be absolutely awful and very unfair for everything he's done. The one thing I will argue is that if Demetrius is going to be out for a while with a few injuries that he suffered during the fight, I think he tore at least one ligament in his knee. He talked about that afterwards in the post-fight press conference, and he seemed actually more upset about his injuries than he did losing. But he's a very good sportsman. I think he's got a good perspective on what's the most important stuff, in life, and he's got another baby girl on the way. So I'm sure he's still a very happy man, but he's definitely bummed out about being injured. If that's going to keep him out for a while, well, then maybe we can talk about Henry Cejudo going up and fighting TJ in the meantime. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing that, but I think that TJ would smoke him, so I don't really think there's much to see there. I would definitely pick TJ to win that fight by knockout, 1,000%. Or at least by decision. Cejudo does seem to have a pretty good chin on him. So yeah, that fight was excellent. Honestly, it's hard to say any more about it because I'm just still in shock. I don't think I've really fully come to terms with the fact that Demetrius Johnson is not the flyweight champion anymore. I mean, that's who he is, and that's what the flyweight division is. I mean, Demetrius Johnson and the UFC flyweight division go hand in hand, and it's crazy that he's not the champion anymore, and it happened to be a split decision. Oh, man, and I really thought he won the fight too, but I hope that he heals up, and I really want to see that rematch. I think that DJ would definitely win the rematch, in my opinion, because although Cejudo's, well, it depends on how much more Cejudo improves. If Demetrius is out for a while and Cejudo gets another fight under his belt, then I might favor Cejudo to win the rematch. But if DJ comes right back, despite what history and statistics will tell you about people like Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Cody Garbrandt coming back for an immediate rematch, I think in this case, with how close the fight was and the fact that I think DJ did win the fight anyways, and how amazing he and Matt Hume are at game planning and strategizing, I think that DJ would take the rematch if they did it immediately. But if they give it too long and he gets a little older and Henry keeps getting better, then I might not favor him in the rematch. But yeah, this fight was awesome. Ton of fun. I guess the craziest part of the fight was definitely the first round with the ankle. That was nuts. Cejudo, one thing I would say, we definitely saw the limits of Cejudo's striking in this fight. He absolutely styled on Wilson Hayes with his new karate style striking, but at the end end of the day, he's only been doing that style for about 2 years now. And, Henry Cejudo's an amazing athlete, but it takes a lifetime to become Lyoto Machida. You can't do that in 2 years. And I think against a more elite striker, and even Sergio Pettis unearthed this to some extent, but against such an elite striker like Demetrius Johnson, it showed that Henry Cejudo may have the karate style and stance going on, but at the end of the day, he still has a lot of work to do on his striking. At least now we have some parity in the flyweight division. At least now things are shuffled up a little bit, but let's get that immediate rematch going. If anyone deserves it, it is absolutely Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Immediate rematch is a must. Before that, Cub Swanson took on Renato Moicano, and I picked Renato Moicano to win this fight by unanimous decision because Cub Swanson is tough as nails, but no matter how tough you are, you still need blood and oxygen to go to your brain. So, I guess I underestimated Renato Moicano's submission skills a little bit. Still picked the correct winner, but he actually won this fight in the first round by submission, and it was beautiful. Renato Moicano is a pretty tall guy. I didn't realize he was 5'11". I thought he was a little bit shorter than that. I think he and Max Holloway would be a very interesting matchup of strikers. Renato Moicano has a beautiful low kick and a beautiful jab. The jab that he knocked Cub Swanson down with was not because Cub Swanson is chinny. It's because he timed Cub Swanson coming in straight, and he threw a Gennady Golovkin-esque ramrod jab. Just one of the stiffest jabs I've ever seen landed in MMA, right on the mouth, and just sat Cub Swanson down. And from there, followed him to the ground, cut through his defense like butter on the ground. I was taking dominant position, landing strikes, stayed patient, and in the scrambles and transitions, he was able to take the back of Cub Swanson and get that choke there. It wasn't all the way under the chin, but it was still cutting off the blood supply. Cub Swanson probably felt like all of his teeth were going to shatter with all that pressure, and he was forced to tap out. He was very humble in victory, honestly, a little bit awkwardly humble. You could tell he has a lot of admiration for Cub Swanson. You could tell that he was trying to acknowledge that, hey, I'm lucky that you not lucky, but hey, you showed me respect by accepting this fight with me. You gave me this opportunity. We're in your home, town. I'm not going to be disrespectful to you. I'm not going to overly celebrate, but I think he took it a little too far in the other direction. You could tell Cub Swanson kind of just wanted him to get up and just celebrate so that way Cub could not be the center of attention. But anyways, that was a great fight for as long as it lasted. Renato Moicano is going to do big things in the future, I feel like, at this division. He called for a rematch against Brian Ortega for an interim belt. The UFC has indicated they are not going to do an interim title in the case of Max Holloway being out, which is a little odd because they seem like they would do it with most other champions if they were going to be out for a while. If they do decide to do an interim title, I think it should be between Brian Ortega and Jose Aldo. Renato Moicano versus Jose Aldo would be a great fight. I do not want to see that, though, because I don't want to see Jose Aldo fight Renato Moicano, because that could be a tough match for him, and I'm a big Jose Aldo fan. I'd rather see Jose Aldo take on Brian Ortega. Renato Moicano, who should he fight next? That's a tough one. He already has a win over Jeremy Stevens. I think I'd like to see Renato Moicano take on the winner of the Frankie Edgar Korean Zombie fight. That's what I'd like to see if he's willing to wait out long enough. November 10th, Korean Zombie is fighting Frankie Edgar, the UFC's 25th anniversary show in Denver, Colorado. I would like to see Renato Moicano take on the winner of that bout. All right. Before that, J.J. Aldrich, as a decent-sized underdog, took a unanimous decision over Polyana Viana. And I don't know if anyone predicted that. Oh, I did. No, I'm just kidding. But I did pick that exact method of victory. That's exactly how I saw the fight going. I was surprised she was an underdog, and she won, and she looked good doing it. There was a little moment there where I was thinking, why is JJ Aldrich clenching so much? But then you saw she was actually very confident in her ability to defend against the submissions and was really, I guess, caught on to something because she seemed to really slow Polyana Viana down. She was pretty tired, especially for a straw weight by the third round of that fight. So maybe that's why she did it. It made me a little nervous at first because I had picked her and I thought that she was winning the striking exchanges and was a little confused with her insistence on clinching, but it all worked out in her favor. Polyana Viana, definitely there's some positive takeaways from that fight for her. She has an excellent right roundhouse kick to the body. Beautiful kicks to the body from her. She also has a very powerful overhook. Underhook is always a great position to get when you're pummeling, but if you're trying to keep someone from being able to break away from you, an overhook is excellent, and she really clamps down on that overhook very well. And then other than that, I definitely scored the fight for JJ. I thought it was pretty obvious, and the judges, I scored at 30-27. The judges said 30-27, 29-28, and 29-27. I'm guessing that third round was the one that one judge gave a 10-8. I'm not too complaining about that, but I thought it was 30-27. I didn't see any 10-8s in there, but she looked excellent, and I really enjoyed that fight. And yeah, it definitely, I know I talked before on my preview show about the fact that that's not really a fight that deserves to be on pay-per-view. I don't think it was fight of the night, and I still don't think it deserved to be on pay-per-view, but I was happy to see the women put on a show, and, I enjoyed watching it. And at the end of the day, since I'm the one who's paying for the pay-per-view, I want to be entertained and enjoying the fights. And if they had not put on a fun fight, then that would have been much more disappointing. Instead, what happened is, yes, it was a fight that I don't necessarily think I should be having to pay to watch, but they made it a very fun fight and put on a show, and therefore I was entertained and wasn't sitting there thinking about the fact that I spent money on it. I was just thinking about the fact that, wow, this is a fun fight and I'm really enjoying it. So they did a great job in that respect, and congratulations for JJ Aldrich, and I can't wait to see what's next for her. Polyana Viana has got to work on moving her head and keeping her hands up higher. I don't know who she thinks she is, but she is carrying her hands so low. I mean, she looked like Eddie Wineland out there, except with no movement or head movement, but just hands stupidly low. That's not a good idea. I don't know who is allowing her to get away with that, but she has got to get that under control, or she will never be able to win a fight at the elite level. She does not have the head movement. She is not a natural boxer. She has no business keeping her hands that low. It is just unnecessary and reckless. And also too, just she was getting tagged up because of it. If she could have blocked at least some of those punches if her hands had just been up, even if she didn't purposely block them, she would have blocked some of them, but instead her hands were down so she was getting hit with everything, especially by that third round. She was probably exhausted though when you think about it. So before that, Thiago Santos took on late replacement Kevin Holland. This was another fight that I was griping about a little bit. It did end up being entertaining, but a lot of just because it was a little bit silly and sloppy. Kevin Holland shouldn't be fighting on pay-per-view, but he definitely made a good show of himself, and I'm a fan now, so good for him. I'm glad the fights all ended up good, because it really made up for the fact that there was a few non-pay-per-view fights that were on pay-per-view. So I had picked Thiago Santos by round 1 KO, and he ended up winning a unanimous decision. And the theme for tonight for my picks is that I picked a lot of people correctly, but then picked their method of victory incorrectly. But, if you were making a flat bet, it doesn't matter. And, of course, I want to give a good prediction, not just to pick who I think will win. I want to give an actual prediction, so you're not going to get all those right. But I thought that, Kevin Holland, credit to him, he's very tough. I think he could have easily been knocked out if he was a lesser fighter or just even less tough. Even if he was a more skilled fighter who was just less tough and less game, he could have been out of there in that first round. He really hung in there. I was very impressed with how tough he is. So, quick comment on him. He has an 81-inch reach, which is absolutely crazy. Wow. I mean, that's John Jones, I think, is 84 and a half or something like that. So 81 inches, crazy reach. However, I don't think that he has the overall frame for a middleweight. So I think he'd be suited to actually cut a little bit of weight and go down to 170. I understand that's hard because that's 15 pounds. Maybe at some point, if there's the 165 and the 175 weight classes instead of the 170 pound, you're turning that weight class into two, and then stealing some guys from lightweight and a few guys from middleweight, then I think he'd be perfect at 175. DC cracked me up during this first round when Thiago Santos just started ground and pounding Kevin Holland so hard. DC said, "Oh, he made him mad," and I thought that was hilarious. DC's awesome commentator. Or no, he said he pissed him off. I thought that was hilarious. Very funny. So yeah, the fight was crazy. Santos was honestly fighting a little bit too reckless and dumb for my liking. I think he could have won this fight a lot easier with a lot less, trouble on his own part if he had just been a little calmer, but that's not his thing. He just likes to entertain and go to war, so good for him. Kevin Holland is a wild man. He was doing some very weird stuff. He went for like a flying omoplata attempt at one point, which was hilarious because, I don't think he was going to get it, but he just went for stuff. He almost had an arm bar, though. He was just going for anything. These guys were both, at one point, they both kicked each other in the cup at like the same time somehow. It was just a very silly is the word for it in my opinion. The fight got pretty silly, but it was, really fun to watch at the same time as being a little ridiculous. And, at some points Kevin Holland looked like he might be getting back in the fight, and then Santos would take the fight back from him. And I think Santos fought dumb. I think Kevin Holland did everything he could. I think his stock only goes up. I think he was the one who should have been fighting reckless and wild with nothing to lose. But I thought Santos could have definitely been a little bit smarter and made this fight easier on himself. But credit for him for only caring about entertaining people. The guy's a gladiator. So, the final scorecards were 29-27 times 2 and 29-26 for Santos. So a couple 10-8 rounds in there. Before that, that was the pay-per-view opener. So before that, we were on the FX prelims, and we had Pedro Munoz taking on Brett Johns. I picked Pedro to win by round 1 submission. He ended up winning by unanimous decision. So once again, correct fighter, wrong method of victory on my part. This fight was all action. I think round 2 is arguably round of the year, possibly, or at least one of the best rounds I've seen in a long time. Pedro instantly started chewing up the calf of Brett Johns. Brett Johns waited way too late to start defending the kicks. He did not defend the kicks from the start. He waited until the second round to start worrying about that, and by then it was too late. He was already compromised, but boy, did he hang in there tough. He was landing his right hand. It's not like he was doing nothing. He was always throwing back. This was not a fight. I agree with the fact that they let him go out for the third round, despite the crazy amount of beating he had taken in those first two, because he was still trying to win the fight. He was still every bit in it. So in that case, I agree with a corner allowing their fighter to go on. This fight was so much fun to watch. That calf kick completely ruined Brett Johns' left leg. His leg was gone by pretty much within the start of the first round. His leg was compromised, and then it was just completely gone by the time we were in the second round. Pedro, I think at least twice, landed a liver kick that dropped Brett Johns, and he was doing like with the digging the toes in. It was beautiful. Somehow Brett Johns did not get guillotined by Pedro Munoz, despite the fact that Pedro went for the guillotine on several occasions throughout this fight while having Brett Johns hurt to the body, which makes it way harder to defend a submission when you're that hurt to the body. That was very impressive to see. Johns is super tough guy. I cannot wait to see what's next for him. Although he does need plenty of time off to heal up from all that punishment he took and let his leg heal up right. I know those leg kicks can really take a while to heal properly. None more famous than Uriah Faber's leg. His documented leg recovery after the Jose Aldo fight. I do think, I guess one criticism I would have for Pedro, I definitely think he allows himself to get hit a little more than he needs to just because he knows he has a good chin. I think he could be a little smarter in that respect. And I also think that if he had just not gone, if he had given up on the guillotine, he could have gotten a TKO finish a few times in this fight after hurting Johns to the body and him dropping to the canvas and Pedro following up. I think his insistence on trying to get the submission did end up costing him the finish, but it was still an awesome fight. I do understand, in any other night, or not any other night, but a lot of other nights that would have been fight of the night, I understand the fact that Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson was fight of the night because of the stakes of that fight and how crazy and close it was, as opposed to just one guy getting the crap beat out of him and then occasionally having a good moment. Pedro dropped him with liver kicks on several occasions. Like I said, went for the guillotine with a crazy amount of persistence, was unable to get it. The calf kicks were really the story of the beginning of the fight. It was a great fight. I scored it 30-26 for Pedro, and the judges scored it 29-27, 29-28, and and 29-28. 29-28 to me is crazy. I don't know how on earth you would have scored that. Just how was there not a 10-8 in there? How did he not win all 3 rounds? I absolutely 1,000% scored that fight 30-26 for Pedro. If you saw it any other way, I disagree with you. Before that fight, and unfortunately, that's really the last one that was on here tonight that I'm super excited to talk about, but we'll go through the rest really quick. Ricky Simone put the grind on Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson has a crazy reach and the biggest hands I've ever seen on a bantamweight. His hands are gigantic. He would get wrist control on Simone, and Simone would be completely unable to get his hand free despite doing all of the proper escapes from wrist control, trying to twist towards the thumb, and he couldn't get out of there, and it was crazy to see. Jackson at one point got back to his feet using wrist control and just like one leg. It was nuts. That fight you could see that Jackson really relies on a lot of his physical attributes, but that wasn't enough because Ricky Simone was in this guy's face the entire time. Excellent wrestling, chaining takedown attempts together, just never, ever letting Jackson have a second to breathe, and that was the key to winning this fight here. I scored it for Simone 30-27. The judges said 30-27 times 2 and 29-28. I agreed with that. He also had an awesome mullet, so good fight, good for him, and can't wait to see him back. Montel Jackson, I think, just had a bad style matchup, and it was a frustrating fight. I'm sure he'll continue to have a good career, and I'd like to see him back in there too. Before that, Ricardo Ramos took on Kong, which of course I'm terrible at saying his name, but it's Kwang Ho Kong, I believe is how you should say it. This fight was a split decision, and so this fight was a split decision. And I'm not really sure. I didn't think it should have been necessarily a split decision. I mean, it was a closely contested fight. Oh, by the way, sorry, I just want to go back for half a second. I did not pick the Ricky Simone fight. I also didn't pick the Ramos fight, so I don't think I had any. I had one more pick on this card. We'll get to that one, but most of these I did not pick. And also, too, one of the judges, I apologize, one of the judges did score the fight 30-26 for Pedro. He got 30-26, 29-28, and 29-27, and I don't agree with Brett Johns getting around. So I don't agree with either one of those latter scores, but I especially don't agree with 29-28 because you're saying not only did Pedro lose a round, but he didn't get a single 10-8 round. I disagree with that. So back to the Ramos fight. Ricardo Ramos won this fight by split decision, 29-28 times 2 and 28-29 for the one round he lost, or the one judge that he lost on their cards. This was an awesome, exciting fight. I thought that it was 29-28 for Ramos. I wasn't entirely sure about who won because the judges can be fickle, and you never really know what they're seeing. But despite the split decision, I was fine with that. I did, like I said, I did think it was pretty clearly Hamos's win. But the fact that MMA is judged by round and not as a whole, of course, can make that a little bit tricky when it comes to the scorecards. Yeah, this was a very, very fun fight. I enjoyed it. It had some good action in it. Both guys looked good. I do think that Ramos smothers his work a little bit. I feel like he gets, and Rose Namajunas does this at times too. She did this in the Tecia Torres fight especially. She kind of smothers her, in the Kovalevich fight, because she strikes from range, and this is what Ramos was doing, striking from range, and he has good range, but then he just kind of smothers his own work by getting too close and ends up in closer quarters than he would like. But this fight had a lot of fun grappling exchanges. It had some good striking. It was just really a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Before that, Shaman Moraes defeated Matt Sales, unanimous decision, 29-28 times 3. I did think that was the correct score, but I thought that there should have been a point deducted for eye pokes, in which case it would have been a draw. So I think it should have been a draw due to a point deduction. Shaman Rice was poking the crap out of Matt Sales' eye on several occasions, being very careless with his hands forward. I do not like seeing that from fighters. I think it is 100% preventable. I do not believe that it is a natural instinct. I think that it is, whether you're truly consciously trying to cheat, I think that when fighters do that, they are doing it in a dirty way, because I feel like your mindset is, well, I'm sticking my fingers out here, and if you run into them, then maybe you will leave me alone. Like when you're getting pressured and flustered, you just stick your fingers out, and you know that your opponent doesn't want to get poked in the eye, so that's going to make you hesitate a little bit. Getting poked in the eye hurts really bad. I've been poked in the eye badly one time in sparring, and it was miserable. I was angry about it. It hurt. I was scared because I was afraid maybe my eye was permanently damaged. And getting poked in the eye is not fun, and definitely hate when fighters have their hands out like that. Matt Sales really had no business being so competitive in this fight, and he was. Dominic Cruz was in his corner with Eric Del Fierro from the Alliance team. Matt Sales looked awesome. I didn't have a pick in this fight, but I was excited about seeing Shaman come back after the loss to Zabit, and he got an excellent fight here from Sales. He looked excellent as the underdog. Like I said, I did not agree with the ref not taking away a point, so shame on the ref for not taking control over that situation. But Sales was aggressive. He has cardio for days. And the biggest compliment I would give Sales is that he has excellent small movement defense. He was taking a lot of the sting off of the big shots that Shaman was throwing by just slightly rolling and moving with them. Excellent to see. It was a lot of fun to watch. Before that, the main event on UFC Fight Pass prelims, Jose Shorty Torres took on Alex Perez. I picked Jose Shorty Torres by unanimous decision, but I also said that was really more of a fan pick, that I really enjoy his game, and that he was obviously an underdog, in fairness to me. Now, I didn't think he'd get knocked out in the first round, so fair play to Perez. Unfortunately, what I think we are seeing is just like Jose Shorty Torres as the Justin Gaethje of the flyweight division, I think he is running into the same problem as Justin Gaethje, which is that and even similarly, they both won their first fight, and both of them looked like they were going to lose their first fight, and then were able to come back. And in Jose Shorty Torres' case, it was even more of a lucky comeback because his opponent knocked himself out. I think he's running into the exact same problem Justin Gaethje is in right now, which is that once you get to the elite of the elite level, you can't just take a beating and come back, because guys are too good at putting on the beating. And that's what happened here. And on the regional scene, on the smaller shows, Jose Shorty Torres would have come back from this, and Torres would have weathered the storm and started hurting Perez, and then come back and put the pressure on him and either won a decision or gotten a finish. And instead what happened is, because we're at the elite of the elite level, Perez didn't slow down. He didn't give him any space to get back in the fight, and he put him out of there in the first round. I felt like that was by far the best Alex Perez we've ever seen. Torres took way too long to get going, and at this level, and he seems to have a lot more of a problem with that than Justin Gaethje. I think Justin Gaethje just has very porous defense, and I said porous, not poor. Porous by there's lots of holes in it, and Torres, his problem is even more so that he just takes forever to get going, and you can't do that in the UFC, and unfortunately, I think that his rise at flyweight is going to be a rough road if he can't, start working on his defense and taking a little less damage, because, it's not really a good look getting finished in the first round when previously you're known for being able to take a beating. That kind of shows you that once you start taking a beating from the higher level guys, it's a little harder to take that beating. So yeah, I'm curious to see both of these guys back, and I think Alex Perez is a real threat. He's a big flyweight. I think he can do good things in this division. Sergio Pettis is, of course, I would love to see Sergio Pettis fight Alex Perez, but Sergio Pettis is just coming off a big win over Joseph Benavidez, so he deserves a bigger fight than that. What I think that Alex Perez should definitely get someone up the ladder a little bit. But I'm not sure who they'll give him. As far as thinking about Demetrius Johnson, if they don't give Demetrius Johnson the immediate rematch and he has to fight someone in the flyweight division for a warm-up fight, then I do think that person should be Sergio Pettis, for the record. I forgot to say that earlier, but that would be a great fight, and it'd be a good time to make it if Demetrius needs a fight before he comes back and gets the rematch against Cejudo. And when you think about it for Sergio Pettis, if he were to beat Demetrius Johnson, that would be just as big as winning the belt. Maybe not financially, but it would just be just as big as far as accomplishments, and I guarantee you he would be just as excited about it as he would be winning the belt. Okay, so before that fight, Danielle Taylor took on... Oh, and by the way, that was officially a first-round knockout, if I didn't make that clear, by Alex Perez. Danielle Taylor took on Weili Zhang. I didn't make a pick. I didn't watch this fight close enough to know who won. I was eating some dinner. I was halfway watching it, most listening to the commentary. I'm sure it was a good fight, and I've heard a lot of good things about, I think it's Zhang, but Weili. I've heard lots of good things about her. Danielle Taylor, she seems like she just has she's very, she's built, so she definitely, I'm sure, is meant to be a strawweight, but she has such short arms. I just think that's always got to be a problem when you're primarily striking for an entire fight. And then the first fight of the night, Chito Vera was taking on Burin, and I'm just gonna say his last name. He was taking on Burin, and he was actually kind of losing the fight in the first round, in the first half of the second round, and then he ended up getting the comeback TKO with some nice body shots. Adjusted, his body shots were getting blocked going around the side, so then he came up with it almost more like an uppercut and was able to drop Burin and finish him off. Excellent performance by Chito Vera. All right, so that was it for the night. It was an excellent night of fights. Back to the top. One guy I didn't talk about what we should do with him. Well, let's talk about as we move back up to the top. Cub Swanson. I'm not quite sure where he goes from here. I don't think that he needs to. I don't think he needs to retire. I don't think that at all. He's still a great fighter. He actually looked pretty good at the start of this fight. He just had a bad style matchup and he had a tough night. What I will say though is that he looked very small next to Renato Moicano, and Cub Swanson definitely is not going lower than featherweight, but I heard on some Instagram interview that he was doing while he was doing his weight cut, like a fan Q&A, he mentioned, it'd be fun to finish up my career at lightweight 155 because then I wouldn't have to cut weight. That would be a terrible idea. Cub Swanson looked very small against Renato Moicano, so just imagine Cub Swanson standing across from James Vick. That Cub Swanson is not big enough to move up to 155. I don't think he needs to retire, but I really would like to see him either take some veteran fights or just take a big step back down, like a big step down in competition. Just fight some, give him some showcase fights where he can get an exciting finish, or give him a fight night headlining spot against another guy who's a little bit more weathered. How about I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go ahead and make a fight suggestion here. Let's see Cub Swanson versus Dennis Bermudez. Why not do that? I think that's a much more manageable fight for Cub Swanson, and I think that could be a fun one. So I would like to see, and they're both names. People know both of them. They could headline a little fight night card somewhere, or they could be a good maybe featured bout on a pay-per-view, maybe a good co-main on a fight night. Pick your poison. I think Dennis Bermudez versus Cub Swanson would be a great fight right now. Both guys have lost a few fights, but both guys still have a lot of fight in them. They're both names. I'd like to see that fight. Renato Moicano, we already talked about him. Henry Cejudo and DJ, we talked about that one pretty well. I think we're just going to have to see what the UFC decides to do, but I think an immediate rematch is an absolute must. Or if Demetrius is going to be out for a little bit, then Cejudo should, if Cejudo is going to be out for a little bit, Demetrius should wait for him. But if it's the other way around, Cejudo does not need to wait for Demetrius. He can take another fight. Cody Garbrandt is in an absolute no man's land now. He has lost 2 times to the champion. I don't think that TJ is going to lose anytime soon, so Cody might be out of luck at bantamweight. And as I mentioned about his frame and the fact that he just does not have he just seems to be a very slender bantamweight, I would really like to see him consider moving down to 125. And so I'm going to give a little thought for Cody Garbrandt real quick. Whereas also I would be skeptical about TJ Dillashaw making 125. I think Cody could make it easily. I'm not sure about TJ making it. He seems to be continuing to get more and more built like a brick house, so I'm not sure if that would be a safe cut for him. I'm sure he could do it because he's a professional and he's got a great nutrition team, but he's the champ at 135. I want to see him fight at 135, maybe against Marlon Moraes. That would be a great fight. Or if they decide to give Cruz the fight, even though I don't know if Cruz deserves it, it would still be great to see that fight. But like I said, I think that if Cody is going to hang around, that he needs to build into his frame a little bit. He needs to put on some more muscle, thicken up those legs, give himself a stronger base, and I think that'd be the smart thing to do, just to strengthen up that base, put on some muscle in the legs, the glutes, and hang around at bantamweight and take a second fight against Dominic Cruz, a fight where he's not fighting a big puncher and he can be confident. I know I talked about this already, so I'll breeze past it, but I will also say if he is going to change weight classes, he should do it right away. He should go ahead and here would be kind of my thought. He's going to need some time off. He's been knocked out 2 fights in a row, and he really needs to take some time off. That was a bad loss that he had last night. He took a lot of damage. He needs some time off. My thought is, while he's taking some time off, he should do a test cut to 125. See if he can get down to 125, see how he feels, rehydrate, and see how he feels the next day. Maybe spar the next day and see how he feels, see if he gets tired, do light sparring, but do like 6 5-minute rounds. Light sparring, no big shots, but see if his cardio can hold up after cutting that weight. And he can do that while he's taking time off. And then if his body does do well with that cut, I think he should go ahead and move down, because at 125, I think he would be a force. He's very fast. He has huge power. I think he'd be much better suited at 125 if that cut does end up being safe. If nothing else, just because logistically he's not going to be getting a third fight with TJ anytime soon. All right. So that does it for me. Man, these fights were great. We've got 2 weeks of no UFC. So I might try and do some early preview shows. I might come on and do a little surprise segment I'm working on. But until then, I'm out of here.